Hello, everyone. I will be speaking about the effects of social media on adolescents' mental health. Even though social media can be an enjoyable space at times, it can also be very damaging to an adolescent's well being mentally and even physically. Excessive use of screen time and social media can cause negative effects such as anxiety and even low self esteem issues. Acknowledging this problem will spread awareness towards young people about not only their well being, but also just social media itself. A benefit of social media used by teens is to foster positive connections with others who share common interests or identities, creating a space for self expression. And these relationships formed in communities like these can create opportunities for positive interactions with diverse peer groups that they can't get offline. According to an American study of American teens aging from 12 to 15, those who have used social media over 3 hours a day face twice the risk of having negative mental health outcomes, such as depression and anxiety. Linda May says if a teen searches for any kind of mental health condition, such as depression or suicide, it's going to feed them information about those things. So soon they may begin to think that everyone around them is depressed or thinking about suicide, which is not necessarily good for mental health. Teens can easily access extreme, inappropriate, and harmful content. Studies have found that discussing or showing this content can normalize these behaviors, such as deaths being linked to suicide and self-harm content. Eating disorders are also a particular problem, but also it's mainly in girls. Exposure to social media can overstimulate the brain's reward center, and when the stimulation becomes too excessive, it can somewhat trigger pathways that are comparable to addiction. The excessive use has also been linked to sleep problems, attention problems, and feelings of exclusion in adolescence. About 95% of teens aging from 13 to 17 use social media, with more than 1 in 3 reporting that they use it almost constantly. With nearly 40% of kids aging from 8 to 12 also use social media. Survey found that 8 and 10th graders 8th grade students spend an average of 3.5 hours per day on these platforms. The influence of social media on youth mental health is shaped by many complex factors, including but not limited to the amount of time children and teens spend on platforms, the kind of content that they are consuming, the activities and interactions, and the degree that it disrupts their everyday activities, such as sleeping and even physical activity that they could be doing, just getting to know people outside of this, and as well as just spending time with their family or doing things like that. Social media effects on adults. So let's take a step back. How much time are you spending on social media every day? I know I do spend a lot of time on social media, but I do take breaks when I can. So in 2023, there were an estimated of 4.9 billion social media users worldwide. An average person spent about 145 minutes on social media every single day. Being socially connected, it can ease our stress, anxiety, depression, and it can boost our social worth while also providing joy and comfort. But lacking strong social connections can pose a real risk to our emotional mental health. Not being able to take some breaks off of social media we can really take a step back and not really have our social skills like we should. And thinking about this in a teen adolescent standpoint who's not really mentally developed just yet, this can really affect them. Unlike us, we somewhat know when to take breaks, but for adolescents, they don't really know when to take a step back and to know, like, okay, I'm spending too much time on this. So this can be a really big problem. But we as adults need to think about how much time are we spending on social media, so we can finally look at the adolescents in our lives, or just the people that we're mentoring, maybe, to see that, okay, this is not a good space for you sometimes, that you just need to take a step back. But the same cons in teens can happen to us as well, such as inadequacy in our life or even appearance, making ourselves feel insecure about our appearance or what's happening in our lives versus somebody else that we know. Just like I could be scrolling on TikTok and I can see this apartment that I want so bad, and I'm comparing my life because I'm in a dorm, but somebody my age is in an apartment. So even FOMO, fear of missing out, feeling like we're just missing out on something that our other peers are doing that we just can't have the opportunity to do. That's just how draining social media can be to us, just because we're always trying to compare ourselves to other people online, when that should not be the case, when we should just be okay with what we have going on in the moment and just realizing that it's just not our time right now. And then isolation. Study shows that reducing social media usage can make you feel less lonely and improve our overall well-being. So when we think about this addiction, when it comes to teens and young adults who are still developing mentally, they don't really know when it's time to give up this social media and when to really know how to take a break. So some ways we can cut back on our social media usage: track your time. Ask yourself, how much time are you actually spending on your social media apps? It's very easy for us to get absorbed and lose track of time, and we could be doing something else. I could be scrolling on TikTok for hours and hours when I could really be going out to a park, studying, doing other things, spending time with my friends. Or temporarily or maybe permanently downsizing, reducing the number of social media apps that you have on your phone. If you have 5, how about reduce it to 2? And lastly, take a temporary break, a day or maybe months without social media. I know me, I do take a good amount of months off of one of my social media accounts, and it's Instagram, because I did realize that I would just scroll on Instagram mindlessly. I would wake up scrolling on Instagram, and I do deactivate for a couple months because I do think it's beneficial to just deactivate and just to remove myself from the noise, and just really taking a step back and getting to know myself again and just hanging out and doing more important things. So for a parent's point of view on this, for their children, a guide for them to use for their teens on social media, especially middle schoolers, teenagers who don't really have a phone but are about to get a phone. You have to, first off, determine the age that you want your child to have access to social media. The APA explains that adolescents mature at very different rates, which makes establishing a universal age recommendation very difficult. The minimum age requirement for social media platforms in the US is 13, but nearly 40% of children from ages 8 to 12 use social media. According to Dr. Vivek Murthy, this shows how difficult it can be to enforce these rules without parental supervision, just because of what the age requirement is. Establishing a family social media plan might be useful also. The American Academy of Pediatrics offers a tool that can help. In addition to setting the age at which you plan to start giving your child a phone or even internet access, this plan can be used to establish rules and help educate children and teens about being careful on social media, their privacy settings, avoiding strangers online, and not giving out personal information. Because I know at that age we were young, but children, they don't really know who is their friend, who is not their friend, and what are not the right things to do. So with them coming up, they have to learn how to maneuver through these social media apps and just internet itself, because they just will not make the right decisions, which can harm them in the end. Secondly, a parent can keep devices out of the bedroom. Research shows a relationship between social media and poor sleep quality, reduced sleep duration, and sleep difficulties in young children is the main cause of social media, because they would like to just lay on their phone in the bed, and will just not do well for their mental health, because they're not getting a lot of sleep, and that will just ruin their everyday life at school and everything else. On a typical weekday, nearly 1/3 of adolescents report using screen media until about midnight or later. Knowing that, try to create a culture at home where all phones are turned off by a certain time, and make sure it's at least 1 hour before going to bed. Because I know even us adults, we can know that when we're trying to decompress in the bed, we're still on our phones scrolling. That keeps us up. So even we can benefit from doing this as well. And then keep the lines of communication open and letting the teen make mistakes. They are still children at the end of the day. They are still growing. They're still learning. So having that communication open with them will know that they can come to you, but also know that if they do make a mistake, it's normal. So it will be easy for them to talk to your teens about social media, and if they have comfortable conversations with them about issues that they may be experiencing. But the ultimate goal is to keep lines of communication open and being able to establish some trust with the child, so they feel more comfortable to come to them if they have any issues. Also, lastly, I would say follow the rules yourself. Parents and even us, we could really benefit from this. Parents need to realize that they are the role models of their kids, and they must follow the same rules that they are trying to set for their children as well. And if they are asking for their teenager to limit their screen time, then we would have to too, and they would have to as well, the parents. So this is my presentation. I hope everybody's enjoyed, but I hope you guys just took away from, yes, this was a presentation about adolescents and their mental health effects from social media, but also us adults can also benefit from this as well. And I hope everybody enjoyed. Thank you.